starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, there are two main important issues within today's debate. Firstly, on maintaining the quality of the performance of these athletes and these individuals within the teams and the clubs. And secondly, in regards to how there is a principal obligation to all the fans for the support that they've allowed, so it's the only way to maintain democracy within sport. This is why the stance we take on side opening government is that we prefer that they gain a majority support from the season ticket holder, with the outcome of firstly maintaining the quality of these sports and secondly being able to give back to the fans that have supported them for a prolonged period of time, both emotionally and financially, right? So a few pieces of characterization before getting on to my argument. So what do these fans look like? They're most likely avid supporters of these clubs who have caused their success. This is because they continue to buy their merch and go to their events and so on and so forth. So they're already giving back financially to these individuals. They're the main stakeholders when it comes to this business because they give large amount of money. And even bet that to that extent, they're willing to bet for their favorite team's wins just because they care so much and they want some kind of profit back. So this allows the fans to not only be appearing as fans, but have their voices be heard and allow for a form of participation from their side. What do these shareholders look like then? They're most likely profit incentivized individuals. They also are for example, and when it comes to clubs and teams, they're probably F1, soccer leagues, so on and so forth. So here's a quick analogy. When it comes to for example, anime, and your favorite anime being literally discontinued because it's not gaining as much attention by the owners of these companies, and so they discontinue it without allowing it a chance, regardless of whether there is a huge fan base that is offering back, simply because they don't see it as fit or see another project as more financially profitable, right? So what is our argument then on why stakeholders are not as equipped as the fans when it comes to these issues? This is firstly because, as I mentioned, they're incredibly profit incentivized and they lack the passion for these sports. They look at sports as a form of, they look at it objectively, as a form of business when they're making their decisions. So, so they will only allow these individuals to be able to as long as they see a future benefit of some sort, they're willing to take the risk now. This looks like, for example, one of the best American. Secondly, in regards to how these individuals have a large amount of favoritism towards certain players. This is due to three main factors. Firstly, in which individual they believe is capable of bringing them more profit. Secondly, on which individual carries the most connections in order to maintain the flow of this profit and bringing money back into their pockets. And thirdly, in regards to just personal bias. That looks like individuals such as the joke that was made out of the Australian breakdancing team, simply because that woman was the wife of the owner of the people who are sending the teams in the first place. That looks like the views of the fans and the views of the owners not aligning enough, that one of the best American coaches for soccer, for example, was kicked out during the season instead of how it would normally be after the season ends, simply for his support of Lebanon with everything that is ongoing with the genocide, right? So their views don't align with the fans and allows for them to be able to abuse their power. This looks like individuals, for example, such as the child molester who was able to go to the Olympics for the beach volleyball team. These are all examples of the shareholders these are definitely things that are not approved by these fans, that these shareholders allowed to happen simply because they prioritize their profit. The outcome this creates is that we want to preserve the investment of these fans both emotionally and financially from these big evil money makers. Second argument then, in regards to how these fans love, I'll take you, sure.
Isn't favoritism necessarily symmetric? Because you also has cognitive biases and also understanding that also have prejudices against other people's fans.
But these individuals are like normal individuals like you and me. So they are people who don't even have that large amount of money. So the favoritism that is created when they are a majority of fans, the majority vote instead of just the views of these one owners or a group of stakeholders in a room who are already stuck in echo chambers because they probably come from very rich, entitled environment, incredibly elitist. it allows for the majority of these fans' voice to be heard. I'll continue the reply to this within my second argument. It's kind of integrated. How fans love a success story. This looks like, for example, Cristiano Ronaldo coming from a very humble background but being able to make it big. The issue then becomes an issue of representation, because not everyone has the level of talent that Cristiano Ronaldo has. Without our ability to allow these fans to be the people dictating the main issues that are brought up by these for their teams and for their favorite things, it allows for this representation to be shut down. So without allowing the fans to use, it hinders the ability for them to gain representation for the upcoming athletes. These fans are people who have supported them from day one. As I mentioned earlier, they attended their events, they bought their merch. So they're principally obligated and it's principally justified to give back to them for the amount of money that they have invested in, given how these individuals are, like, as I mentioned earlier, they don't have that large amount of money when it comes to their support. So this boils down to benefiting both the fans and the owners of these stakeholders when it comes to profit, because they now see, because as these stakeholders, as these shareholders see it as one of the ability to make, like, businesses, if they are able to satisfy the fans, then the fans are going to continue maintaining their support for a prolonged period of time, allowing for money to flow, allowing for their favorite teams to be, like, acted upon within these, in the best interest of these fan bases, and allowing for more voices of these athletes to be heard. And here's like a kind of a preemption in regards to how the views of the fans might not be the most accurate. We believe that it's going to be reasonable to some extent, given how it's majority vote and not just whatever happens. So it will not create a level of chaos that is to be expected from all forms of other environments. For all those reasons, proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, PM. Let's have hello, Chicken.
So you mentioned a point of giving back to the fans when they have really contributed so much to the companies. Okay, sure, but wouldn't it be more productive to have a body of people who actually know what they are doing, technocrats, people who actually are skilled in the industry to make decisions, who actually facilitate policies which are good for the company, rather than rely on a bunch of fans who are like kind of spontaneous and don't exactly know what is better what is for the better good of the team. Because I think it's important to know that in the speech itself it said that people have boycotts, people are like vulnerable to like political opinion on what's going on in society. So if you're allowing these bunch of people who are very volatile in their opinion to be able to like have a significant impact in what you are presenting in your teams, and I think it's going to be extremely it's not going to be something that's long-lived, because you're going to face a lot of issues in the long term, which I'm going to explain in my speech. But second of all, you mentioned the fact that these shareholders, which are shareholders of companies which are profit central, are going to make decisions which are important to their profit, right? And this can include maybe discontinuing or disenfranchising something because it's good for their profit. And you give the example of anime. And I think this is a bit unfair, because these sports companies, they are inherently enterprises, right? I think it's important to I think it's important to note that these enterprises are multi-billionaires, so of course we have to be profit centralized because we need the resource and need the output, we need all that stuff to be able to contribute back into our cost in the first place. So if you're giving anime as an example, anime doesn't really make any sense because anime is something that's made by a small group of people who are like contributing to this one small project. But as sports enterprises, like a bunch of people, a bunch of shareholders who are in society, and they've like a bunch of positions in there's like bureaucracy and all that whatnot, which is something that we have to sorry, let me continue first. That we have to take into account, that we have to take into notice because these are for long-term plans, not just something that the fans have opinion of right now. Yeah, sure.
How do these sports club make money?
The sports club makes money by selling merch, and fans buy the merch, sure, but that doesn't mean that you have to change the status quo right now, because instead, if the fans are already buying the merch and they really boycott companies if they're not doing things correctly, that means that the board of directors, they have the incentive to be able to change their policy, which we argue on status quo is something that's really beneficial, it's really working. Because we really see with all the political boycotts, this actually affects how companies will present themselves, and this is no issue with what sales growth going on right now. So moving on to what I think is the topic of training. So sports clubs are essentially big enterprises, right? They're multi-billionaire businesses. They need a board of directors to be able to facilitate things for the company and they need to ensure that profit is something that is their first need right now. So I think having people have such a big say in the company's decisions and all that whatnot is going to increase the bureaucratic burden on the company itself, because now in order to facilitate any decision, you have to go to the fans, the representative of the fans, you have to go to I don't know, like someone you choose from the fan clubs, and this is going to be very hard and very risky, right? Because now, not only do I have to consult my directors, I have to consult the fans, I have to consult my sponsors, I have to consult so many people, and also make one simple policy decision. And this is going to be extremely hefty and a lot of work for the people who are in these workspaces, which is unfair because this is a company. You have to not only you have to be profit centralized, so sure, but there's still a lot of people who work in this company who require that flow of productivity, which is something that we already ensure right now in the scope. So I think it's also important to note that all owners themselves, the board of directors, there are people who want autonomy and agency in their decision making. And if you're moving this power to like the people in claims that it's democratic, it's actually going to be detrimental to the sports club, because people who actually hold power right now, the people who have shares right now, are the people who want to do things that they think they deem are good for the club, right? And this is actually good because now, in the future, if you give the shareholders the autonomy to do what they want and pass the policies that are needed for the sports club, the future shareholders, people who buy the club, will actually know that this is a good financial decision and it's viable for their future, because now I know that this club is something that's good and I'm going to invest into it and I have the autonomy to do what I want with the club. Yes.
If the views of the fans are being represented, won't money just go back to these owners in the first place, benefiting them more on our side? Please engage.
Yeah, I'm sure the money can go back to the owners. We think that this is an issue because now the money that's going back to the owners will be able to actually be invested into better means, like bettering the sports club and investing in all the equipment and whatnot. And this is actually good because now, even though the fans are like shitting on the sports club, it's okay because they're holding them liable and nothing's wrong with the scope. We are actually making policies that are productive for whatever we want to stand for. Okay, anyways, moving on to my arguments as to why this policy is bad and why we shouldn't go with this at all. So I think it's important to note that now societal pressure and boycotts and all the things that fans do, like not buying their products, not showing up to their games, is already a way of showing that these sports clubs can be held accountable. There is nothing more status quo because these clubs, which are profit centralized, do rely on the fans. We are not denying that, but it's because we rely on the fans that we have no reason to change the status quo, because the board of directors actually listen to the fans and make decisions which are aligning with each other's values. And I think this is extremely important because, first of all, in my arguments, I think it is important to know that fans are generally unreliable. We know that fans can be swayed by political movements and whatever agenda they are advocating for at the moment. So this is going to be bad because now the representative, the owners, the technocrats, the people with skills who actually have like step knowledge on this field in general, they're going to have like this big clash with the fans themselves, and it's going to cause like a lot of it's going to be extremely unproductive for the company because like you can't exactly make decisions which can benefit both sides. So you really need this like centralized department to be able to make decisions on behalf of the company, prioritizing the longevity of the company and not just like going with whatever the fans want, right? Because like I said, fans are voluntarily clocks in their own. They will make decisions which they deem are good for the sports club, but they don't exactly have the spec knowledge or the skills to know what is actually good in the long term. And I think this is really important because people with actual opinions that are beneficial towards the long-term growth of the club is going to be able to facilitate good policies. Okay, moving on to my second point. It's about the fact that now that we actually be able to facilitate good policies for the company, to be able to generate more revenue, be able to develop more technologies to be able to help the sports club. So, like I said just now, like investing into equipment, training people, getting better trainers for the players, and this is good because now the sports club not only gets better quality, but you can also ensure that you can also ensure that decision making is quick and precise. So what have I proven to you? I proven to you that people, fans are unreliable, and now just relying on our board directors to be able to facilitate good policies is already working, and we see no reason to change them. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, let's have the PM.
I have no pronouns. I don't identify with anything. Can call me anything. Maybe call me yours, but okay. Okay. So wait. I also accept your eyes in the last 2 minutes. With that, thank them so much. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I think I'll do a few call-outs before I get to the why some of the more benefits given on their side isn't very exclusive at the end of the day, right? Because the thing is, at the end of the day, we're all really hinging on fans, right? Even if we want to say there's a lot of processes in the company that is important, the thing is the company wouldn't exist if the fans don't give them the money to the company so that company can function and exist in the first place. At the end of the day, the fans are everything. Because without the fans, what is the company? What is the sport? Because at the end of the day, remember, sports is an entertainment industry. Entertainment wouldn't exist without the people who consume this entertainment in the first place, right? So a lot of the benefits given on their side, they talk about, oh, there's equipment, there's that and that, because you get profit. Yes, on our side, we also get profit. We can also reinvest into equipment and whatnot, right? So I don't really see the exclusive benefits on their side. And let's go to a few other things that I feel like, I think my first speaker has said, I'll extend on that, right? So let's look at the worst case scenarios that happen right side, which actually happens, and it's what is the most important reason why we have this debate today. Okay, let's give the example given by my first speaker, the child molester in Olympics. What does this look like? It looks like, for example, this basically, I'll give the context. The child molester in Olympics, I don't remember he was from country. I think he was from the French beach volleyball team. He competed in beach volleyball, even though a lot of people in the industry, a lot of people in the sports industry already gave a lot of backlash for him to be banned from the sport because he literally sexually assaulted a child, and he has been found guilty of that, right? And the whole issue, so what happened during that time was basically during the Olympics, it looks like what? So it's like, despite the backlash, nobody wanted to ban him from the sport, right? It looks like, for example, when nobody listened, what happened is nobody came to the beach volleyball at the Olympics. Nobody came to the event, especially when the day that he played and whatnot, right? And what happened? Those who actually came actually just actively booed every time that guy touched the ball, right? And it looks like, for example, first it makes the environment, the quality of the performance not good. Why? Because it's less conducive. Imagine every time you play, everybody's booing and whatnot. It looks like what? It looks like problems. It looks like disrupting the game and whatnot. Second, it looks like, for example, actively undermining the integrity of the sport, right? Because it looks like, for example, because these people are the ones who consume the sport. It looks like, for example, cronyism in a case that, for example, it looks like disrupting the quality performance in terms of, let's say, because there's certain things that people want to see in needless like favoritism or whatnot. Okay, wait, I need to get this straight real quick. Okay. popular within the sport, right? First things first is that of course they have their style and their appeal, and this is just being popular because of their other qualities and whatnot, right? So imagine if you're a new person within the sport, right? You're a new fan in the sport. So it looks like, for example, you want to look up to these people, but imagine the person you look up is the people at the top Olympics of the sport is a child molester. So like it also affects the optics of the sport, right? It looks like, for example, damaging the optics of the sport. Like people outside of the sport will look, oh, the top of the beach volleyball is what, a child molester, and people in the sport will be like, oh no, people will not like us, people will don't like us, people will not only people at the event but people out of the event will less likely to watch beach Olympics. It looks like what? It looks like less profit for the people who stream those kind of things, right? It looks like less profit for the people who sell those tickets and the shareholders in the first place, right? So that's the worst case scenario that happens, and actually is more likely to happen compared to whatever that's happened on their side. Because what does that look like on their side? I think they try to tell you, but they don't actually tell you perfectly. I think it looks like, for example, sure, let's say, okay, they want to, I don't understand their part of bureaucratic issues. It looks like, okay, they want to make a huge policy. Let's say they want to trade a player, right? Let's say the French beach volleyball team wants to ban that child molester, right? We should, some guy was like, oh, we should keep this child molester because I don't know what happened on that side, right? And then they're going to be like, but we need him for the Olympics. But then what happens is that, you know, tickets fall and whatnot, people don't go to the Olympics. And now at the end of the day, what the bureaucracy looks like, it looks like trying to get the profits from the loss that they put the child molester that happened from letting that child molester participate in the first place. Which at the end of the day, whatever policy they're doing is actually to cater to the fans. So instead of going through that bureaucratic process, why don't we just ask the fans who to get rid of? So it's easier, we don't have to go through that bureaucratic process in the first place. So that's actually a better way compared to just asking a board of directors. Why don't we ask fans directly? So those kind of issues don't happen in the first place. For the profits, like the bad things that happen on their side happens because you go through this whole bureaucratic process, which takes time, which means more money is lost, more money is less tickets are getting sold, and more backlash is getting on and so on and so forth. Okay, I'll take that QI.
Okay, so basically, like if you really agree that companies are profit oriented and you agree that things that they do will affect their inherent profits, don't you think they already have enough accountability as fans in terms of boycotting or whatever?
Yes, so imagine if you boycotted the whole sport, what would happen to that sport? They wouldn't thrive. That's why a lot of stadiums in the US, what happened to them? It looks like them going bankrupt. It looks like the people organizing these sports and whatnot going bankrupt, especially in a lot of stadiums in the US where they want to hold certain sports and whatnot, right? And those in the end of the day, because they're so unprofitable, because the fans don't even want that stadium in the first place, right? And because they don't want that sport in that certain place in the first place, right? It looks like those stadiums being abandoned. It looks like money wasted into those investments and whatnot, right? So you can see the whole issue, because at the end of the day, those stadiums were built for the fans. But if the fans don't even like the stadium, don't even attend the stadium, don't even use the stadium, what's the point at the end of the day, right? Wasting money, wasting resources and whatnot. So yeah, from there you can already see it damages the optics. Second, doesn't really bring a lot of profit to the company. At the end of the day, it's an entertainment industry. We need to cater to the fans and whatnot, right? And of course, it's as I said, at the end of the day, let's say our best case scenario is that, okay, we listen to the fans. We don't need to ask a whole board of directors. We just go to the fans. We ask them. We don't have to go through that loss of profits and whatnot to have those kind of issues that have on their side, right? So at the end, it looks like, for example, we actually catering. We're not wasting resources. We're not wasting the resources that could have invested in other things. For example, sport on like a useless stadium and whatnot. So with that, I would like to end my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, DLO. Sorry, thank you, DPM. That's a DLO. Okay.
It's okay. Pronouns he, him. QI, just interject me anything. Maybe get a big one. Give me a quick minute to papers. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. there exists a special and integral part of line in distinction of whoever carries out a certain policy and then whoever acts as the check and balance towards this policy. This is the fine line between the owners and the owners of the fans in checking, in like cross-checking and being the check and balance towards them. The moment in of which your fans are inherently the ones that are making the decisions in the first place, you are then more susceptible to all the problems that OG is trying to tell us. What did OG try to tell us? Favoritism. Bro, fans have favoritisms too. They like specific players like Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo over other players. I don't understand why is that mutually exclusive. Two, they have cognitive biases, which means because they are the ones making the decisions, they're then more likely to not care about sunk cost fallacies and then continue on making that fucking bad decisions in the first place. This means whatever decisions they then make is more than extrapolated to become more harmful. But three, also notice but how all the things they talk about, like for example, like one about like the integrity part also doesn't really exist within fans because there has to have they have to assume the fans are benevolent. You can't really assume this. Man City has 1,000+ violations. The fans still support them no matter what the fuck violations that they do, and they don't want them to be prosecuted. I don't understand why fans' incentive would then be integral to a sport. I think they want their teams to win no matter whatever means then necessarily. This means it is then symmetric any harm that side OG tries to prove. Two things I want to call out here before I move on to my speech. First, this is a policy debate. What was the policy coming from OG? I'm really unsure. Comparative to that, my side has already given a counterfactual towards you, bro. We're just going to do status quo, and the status quo looks like this. You have fans being the check and balance towards your companies who are making stupid decisions. Maybe like they make stupid decisions by boycotts or whatever forms of things they don't want to do. This is a counterfactual. CG, please come out with a policy to then save OG's case, whatever. But two, then also the ideas of like they tell us like reinvestments or reinvestments of owners into sports, getting better equipment and coaches are also symmetrical. They also try to claim that. No, bro, that's not how it works. My side has to uniquely tell you why the facade of having more autonomy and agency encourages owners to then proclaim or prospect more forms of this type of like sports clubs. This means like if you want to sell a club, more people want to buy this club because now their decisions are not inhibited by the majority of like volatile fans. This means people are gonna be then more willing to spend more in buying these clubs because of the possibilities of earning somewhat of a money. Yes.
The violation of whatever team you just named is a legal issue. Why are fans responsible to like not control it or continue to
No, I'm just
support
telling you
it?
that's incentive for fans to not want them to be prosecuted in the first place. They're not benevolent lah, bro. Okay, moving on then to other forms of like moving on then to another forms of like wait, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, reinvestments. This means that by larger extent, it's going to provide psychosomatic effects towards your owners to then want to then buy or proclaim more forms of like be more willing to sunk cost into your sports. Why is this then inherently important? Because then this proves everything that Summer has told you about better forms of quality of sports. And I think better quality of sports is something that we can inherently get because we get more investments into it. Moving on then towards rebuttals, towards principles which I'll tackle in my extension on how it negatively affects sports, and two on the idea of integrity, which I'll integrate to. First extension then on how essentially including this bureaucratic process, I assume would then I don't know what policy they are trying to implement, would then negatively affect the sport. Under three folds. First, under the side of politicizations of this sports, what does this mean? This means now your fans are then who are more susceptible to harm because they're not necessarily hiding behind your either rich like bodyguards or whatever, are then forced to make decisions of like whatever potential political decisions that they have or ideas in the first place. So why is this then extremely harmful? Because one, it exposes vulnerable stakeholders on the ground, your fans, to like making decisions that could largely lead to potential injuries, physical harm to this individual in the first place. This means one, you are increasing the likelihoods of your fans getting hurt, which hurts your main stakeholder in the first place. But two, it also increases the likelihood of injecting politics into sports. This is extremely harmful because it then deteriorates the sports in general being something that is of like human human nature to then connect people. Yes.
Can you give me one example of a majority shareholder in a football club right now?
Majority shareholder in a football club. I assume most football clubs are already majority shareholders in the first place. I don't understand what's the point of WY. But then second idea, then splintering. It also creates splintering amongst your fans in the ground because now your fans are then forced to make decisions according to whatever forms of like your bigger team or bigger sports clubs are going to make in the first place. This means by larger extent than not, you're going to create factionizations within your fans in general that essentially blame one another for the failures of the club rather than blaming the biggest, blaming the owners in the first place. This means by larger extent, you're going to create a hostile environment within your most important stakeholders also. Simple. But 3, also understand that it also increases the barrier of entry of the fans who are enjoying this club activities. Why? Simple. Bro, not everyone, sure lah, maybe some people are very like enthusiastic about fans. Some people buy season passes just because they want to watch it on a weekly basis with their friends after their 9 to 5 and so on, whatever. They do not want there to be increased thresholds of like understanding politics, making decisions, etc., etc. They just want to watch sports as it is. I don't understand why this then becomes an extreme benefit for them the moment in which it increases the barrier of entry. So what have we told you then? Under these 3 things, it negatively affects the sport, which means the moment if you don't implement it, it basically protects the principle or sanctity of whatever OG is trying to tell you so far. This means because we don't actively put our fans in active jeopardizations of their whatever forms of health and whatever, then it provides capacities to then be principally obligated to give. You're already giving it back to them principally lah. Second thing down then mentions. I think this debate is not about whether you have accountability or not. I think this debate is about whether the current pre-existing accountability, although current pre-existing accountabilities exist, why is there then such a big push for there to be a restructuring of accountability? Site CG needs to answer that. Moving on then to my second extension on the ideas of check and balances. Simple. So the only way for check and balance to inherently exist is for you to then not be the ones making the decisions in the first place. If you really want to talk about all the niche things that you want to talk about, people calling out the child predator in your Olympics, you need to have a separate person that puts them into the Olympics in the first place. Assuming that in this position, because you cannot assume that your fans are benevolent, they could also potentially put your child predators in your Olympics. So what does this then mean? Then you have no forms of check and balance then to call them out. Because who then is going to boycott a decision that's already majoritarian made? This means by larger extent, if you want to protect actual good humanitarian principles, you need to separate the executioner from the ones who from the prosecution, I think. Wait, no, it's not the correct sentence, but you get the idea. All those reasons never been promised to oppose.
Thank you, Liew. Let's have a look.
Closing government believes that there's no value to sports outside of appreciations by its fans. CG will prove that fans are the most important stakeholder, firstly because there's a reciprocal duty for sports leagues and sports managers to care about what they want, and secondly because the long-term viability of sports and the community that supports it relies on fans staying engaged and staying interested in sports in the first place. How does this weigh out against opening government? One, child molesting is a crime, so we're very happy to arrest them on either side of the house, and if they get past whatever accountability system, we're happy to fix that, okay? This is not about voting. Second, in terms of reciprocity, the OG doesn't go beyond just talking about purchasing tickets. In closing gov, we're going to explore the entire ecosystem being interdependent, the community enjoyment of sports, the viewership base and the infrastructure that supports like ESPN and the broadcast media sponsorship, and also other sponsorship too, which is a major source of sustaining sports in the long term. Secondly, in terms of the long-term viability of sports, we will explain there's community interest and the enjoyment of sports that keeps people inside the sports, engages people to play with those sports, encourages policy support from the top down to make that possible so that athletes can get the support that's required to represent the country in whichever league they eventually want to go to. This is the best for sports in the long term. Before I go into explaining this, I think just for clarity, we will give you a mechanism of how this could happen from closing down. The first thing is that I think this policy has to be done by the sporting body. So for football, this is probably going to be done by FIFA, right? Like the Football Association. For taekwondo will be done by WTF, the World Taekwondo Federation or whatever. How this is going to be presented is that whenever the sports team or sports manager wants to make a decision, they'll probably call like a town hall session, have it like a Zoom webinar or something where they just explain the decisions they want to make, the players they want to sell, where they want to host the sporting event or whatever, and then just explain it in terms of what they want to do. Finally, then we just have a voting system where people who subscribe to a fan club of this particular football club, like if they really like Liverpool and they form this online fan club and people register and they buy season tickets through this platform, these will be the people that are voting, and at the end of the day, I think it's the hardcore fans whose voices matter the most. If they don't get majority support, then they cannot go through with this, they'll have to go back to the drawing board and just come back again. In terms of mitigation, does this mean fans will make bad decisions and opening opposition claim? The first thing to point out is that I think managers also don't want fans to make dumb decisions and have an incentive to present these proposals in a way that's meaningfully good. Second is that they probably have enough smart fans here that care about the long-term viability of the club and therefore probably will make decent decisions. Lastly, we'll say that even if they make bad decisions and we don't always vote for the best governments in power, that's okay because it's a sense of ownership and the right for fans to be a part of the decision making given that they're deriving the most value from this. Secondly, would there be a barrier of entry? I think there's a huge barrier of entry to becoming a hardcore debater. Most people still successfully do it. So the people that do pass this, whatever barrier it is, will be the people that are in the best position to make decisions. And even if that means less people vote, that's a trade-off we're happy to make. The comparative is no one voting in your world, and you can still be lower level fans in our world as well. Okay, extension. There are 3 reasons why fan viewership underpins sports. The first is as a function of individual enjoyment. There is no particular value to kicking a black and white ball with 12 people on either side of the field outside of the enjoyment that people derive from that particular activity. The same reason why schools are created for educating kids and not for profit or any other reason is the same reason why sports should be done for the enjoyment of athletes and the community. And I'll explain later why most of the time the people who fund these sports and own the sports club don't necessarily keep this interest in mind. The second and arguably the more powerful mechanism here is in terms of revenue generation. And OG again talks about ticket sales and merchandise and stuff, but it's much more than that. It's about the entire viewership base that underpins media broadcast view. So ESPN wouldn't exist and it wouldn't have huge amounts of money to offer to people if there wasn't a huge community that watched and enjoyed the sports in the first place. The whole reason why there's enough funding for this ecosystem to work is because people actually enjoy that sport. And if you take this enjoyment away because you make decisions that fans don't like, it is likely that this entire sources of funding go away as well. This also underpins things like sponsorship. Like that's why companies like Red Bull, like Yonex, like Milo, they expend millions of dollars for sponsorship deals for like this like mascot branding, mascot, whatever thing, because they want the visibility. It is important to keep the funding to host sporting events, to build stadiums, to sponsor athletes to go for competition, to create prize pools for athletes that want to go to, and ensure that this ecosystem continues to function. Revenue generation is a significant part of how our fan base underpins sports. The third reason is because of policy support. So when majority of people care about sports later, they're going to talk about it. They want to play sports in school. They go to the stadium to kick the ball around, to throw a frisbee around. This is when these things become a political issue, but the community is talking about it as a whole. So policymakers that now support sporting programs, things like training programs that help at schools to try to headhunt proper talent, to hire coaches, to build facilities like the high jump thing of your stadium where you can throw things, to hire coaches as well. These are things that improve the sporting infrastructure from a policy landscape and empower people that want to take part in sports to do so. The reason this is important because the value of sports derives from the community, but number 2 is because of community building itself. So you engage with the community when you play badminton with them, when you play frisbee with them. You work through like things like racial tensions, etc. through things like sport, playing sports and watching sports with people, but also the health benefits, the integration which all creates for a better education system in the long term. This is why fan viewership is particularly important. Before 6, anything?
Can you explain why is it likely for directors to sabotage their own team and lose fan base?
Yeah, because they don't care about sports. Right? They only care about the money. How does this compare to like the sports ownership? I'm going to talk about this right now actually. So most of the time, the people who own majority shareholders in these sporting sports clubs are kind of disconnected from the fan base. They make decisions in their own personal interest rather than the interest of the fans. And if you think about it, this is just intuitively true. Like the biggest owner in PSG, some other football club is Saudi Aramco, right? They're a oil company that is looking to wash their image, doing things like sports washing, not necessarily caring about the future of sports. And it's for this reason that they often care more about the perception of sports rather than the interest of the fans as a whole. So they make decisions in their own personal interest, things like selling a player because that brings in revenue, even though it makes fans upset because the football club needs to close the ballot books or whatever. Like the Badminton Federation of Malaysia that benched Rizz because they didn't follow regulation, a hugely political decision that the entire badminton community in Malaysia hated. expected. These things destroy the fan base, and that makes it hard for sport to function as a whole. In conclusion, number one, there's a reciprocal duty for the sporting managers and sporting organization to care about the fan base for all the reasons I've explained why there is this moral nexus. But second, the long-term viability, ensuring the community of sports continue to grow, the interest of sports grow, and people continue to sign up as athletes, and the infrastructure exists for people to go into the sporting industry. All those reasons, very proud to propose.
Thank you, member of club. Let's have the notes off. Okay, good.
On top of me and Christine being chronically fought as OG, we are also usually chronically fought and hindering sports motion. But at the end of the day, most likely sports is just for business, and this is why the entirety of government case falls, right? Because their main push is on the assertion on the fact that these directors don't care. These people are rich, investing into sports that are not stereotypically rich. Most likely, these directors are also fans of the club. Most likely, these directors are also fans of the sports player, which means most likely there is some incentive for them then to invest on sports. Because if there's no incentive, if it's just about profit, then might as well invest in like, I don't know, like Tesla or whatever, some other companies that are a lot more richer, engage with both, right? First thing first, let's engage with CG. Few rebuttals. One, they say that, oh, fans are smart. Again, no analysis as to why these fans are smart. Most likely, I think OG also says that these fans are most likely to be biased, which means that they are focused. Whenever they watch any sports, most likely only focus on certain players, only focus on certain seasons, only focus on certain matches that they think are interested, right? But then number two, they say that, oh, if not smart, then it's fine. Okay, then it's a matter. If it's not smart for directors to make if directors make stupid decisions, that's also okay, right? But yeah, so for example, like we went to bring okay. Number two, right? They say that they are able to put in more value into sports, especially when it comes to the community, in terms of like putting more infrastructures and whatnot. One, I can't understand why this cannot also exist on outside of the house. These directors, these communities, these clubs would most likely want to engage with the community to gain more fans, to do like to increase their reputation or whatsoever. This also likely to exist on outside of the house. Number two, I think another thing that both batches from government wants to push into this debate is on idea of wanting fans to stay. I still don't understand why fans cannot stay on our side of the house anyway, right? Because number one, fans are sports enthusiasts, right? They most likely are still going to watch because they love sports for what it is. If they only love the sports when the sports are only doing well, then most likely these fans are going to be the one that's profit incentivized, right? But also number two, again, if you're so damn enthusiastic about sports, then come be directors. If you have the money to buy season tickets, come join the company, right? Also, number three, even if you don't accept all of this, we think that wanting fans to stay can still happen on us of the heart by number one, this club can still engage with fans, meeting these fans, allowing these fans to meet their players, introduce these fans to players and whatnot, giving them the recognition that they deserve. These are all the things that most of the time the most enthusiastic people when it comes to sports are like they would want to stay at the end of the day. What's the extension coming from my speech then? Two things. I'm going to engage directly with CG. I'll tell you why shareholders or like directors are the better actors. Number two, I'll focus on sustainability, right? Why are then shareholders or like board of directors are the better actors? First level, we think that enthusiasm, it exceeds just being a fan, right? Me watching debate doesn't necessarily makes me cap level or whatsoever, right? Yeah. What does it then look like in terms of this sports, right? Number one, know that it requires them to invest a large amount of money. This is not only about shareholders, but the majority of shareholders, most likely they like outbid the large majority of people that also would want to invest in sports company, right? Which means that they put in the extra steps for them to actually, because when you are the majority of shareholders, then you are most likely to be the directors, you are most likely to have the most important vote, which means there comes certain expectation on them to also make the decision. If I don't care about certain sports, then why would I want to be a part of the management to run the club to begin with, right? Also, number two, again, these people are rich. Football, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a stereotypically rich sport. The fact that they choose to invest all their efforts and energy into these particular sports also push an incentive as to why they would actually care about the sports at the end of the day. Also, number three, they are the freaking directors. Surely, number one, even if they're not sports enthusiasts or whatsoever, they have the duty then to make sure that they don't fuck up these companies, right? Because there are a lot of shit at stake. Because if they fuck this one up, most likely their rep is going down in history, considering how much media coverage that the world now has on sports. So most likely they do have the incentive, even if they're not sports fans, they have the incentive then to not fuck up. But also number four, these people invest in companies, most likely they are businessmen in nature, but it means that they have the precedence, they have the experience then to invest in a bunch of other stuff. But then it's not just about investing, it's also making sure that they put on a strategic voting into when it comes to making big decisions, because they would want their profit to sustain. But also number two, if I want a freaking profit, surely I have to care about sports. It doesn't make sense for me to blindly make a decision and claim, oh, this is for profit, right? But second level then, let's weigh out with between shareholders and fans, right? When the fact that these shareholders now have responsibility already take one step further. Like I said, fans most likely only care about certain aspect for it. They don't necessarily look into the sports in general. They only would want to watch sports when it comes to their teams, when it comes to their most favorite player. When it comes to other potential things that are on the rise, most likely they would not want to watch it. Also number two, you can also co-op with this, right? If fans think that, oh, I think this player sucks, or I think this club should do certain things, surely this club then can also listen to the opinion of the sports and also take into consideration. The difference then, right, you might want to ask like, oh, if fans are good, then why let's not make them directors? No, because if they make stupid decisions, then at least to the very least directors are able to kind of reject and say, no, you're quite dumb for this, I'm going to go with a different direction. On that side of the house, literally have to follow, right? Also number two, if you have fans making the decisions, then what's the point of shareholders? Most likely you don't have the money to continue the club anyway, right? Because shareholders are most likely the main source of profit.
Even if the directors are fans, they're stuck in echo chambers. How do you deal with that on your side for them making mistakes?
I think I already explained it, I'm just going to move on, right? Second extension down on getting better sustainability. Judge this decision is not about clubs making a simple decision, but it's about making major decision. What does it look like then? It's not only about winning game, but it also looks like saving a lot of money so that in the next future they are able to invest into facilities. But it also looks like then approaching things that are very confidential in nature. For example, accepting certain sponsors or projects, or accepting certain fundings from a certain politics. These are all the kind of decisions that most likely fans don't care, because they only care about men kicking ball. I also don't get it, but fine, let's roll with it, right? Which means that on top of being just because this business is about long run. Your fans most likely only care about what's happening in the present, in the status quo. They won't care what's happening in the next 10 years. They only think, oh, you buy this good player, you're going to win next game, but not in terms of all the nuance, the logistics and whatnot. This is something that's exclusively was discussed by CEO, right? But also number two, the fact that these shareholders are rich, most likely they have connections with sponsors, with another big name or whatsoever, and therefore they are able to gain more profit. This debate is about actor, CEO prove that. Thank you.
Thank you, member of Let's Have Cover.
CEO's extension falls out of the debate if you just gut check this in reality. Barcelona lost so much money and had such shitty management, they couldn't afford Lionel fucking Messi and he had to transfer to PSG. There are calls of fans being disillusioned, saying Manchester United has fallen off since the Paul Scholes days, right? Fans are increasingly disengaged. Empirically, the odd case is wrong, because football clubs have been losing money year after year, which is why CG's mechanism of increased fan engagement and revenue has to be the way forward in the debate. I'm gonna do two things in this speech. One, I'll do it with the op bench as a whole, and then I'll weigh my extension against it and show you why we win this debate. Let's first start with the entire op bench, and I want to generalize them because OO says there's a divide between the management and whatever, and CO says, you know, BOD has some incentives. Okay, first piece of important framing we gave you from TJ that they kind of ignored. We said often the owners of these clubs buy this club to greenwash their human rights abusers. Saudi Aramco, no response. Secondly, let's extend this debate. If you know like anything about football, and empirically it's true, most football clubs, EPL clubs are owned by billionaires. Why is this important? These people have established businesses, they make their money elsewhere, therefore they are not reliant on the sport as a whole. Third, they could also be inherited. Like, just look me in the eye and tell me the Glazer family gives a fuck about football. It's likely probably their parents bought it a long time ago and they're just like carrying on the tradition, right? It's not like this 70-year-old man give a fuck about football. But fourthly, and even if you don't buy any of this, dude, that literally misses the point of CG's extension. Our claim was not that they'll make better decisions or that this club BOD makes bad decisions. It was simply increased engagement of fans, right? Our claim was simply that these people are closer to the representative community of fans and people on the ground, whereas people in power, people who inherited the club or have tons of money or have football as like a side business or a way to diversify your investments or whatever, or just buy it for fun, it's like generally not in tune with people on the ground. The second thing I want to do is this whole thing, but people have cognitive biases, they're short term, this whole stock argument. Look, at best, this is symmetric because these club owners are also humans. They also suffer from these biases. Our claim on CG was that if you have a large enough voter base, these biases tend to even out over time. And this is the missing mechanism that OG doesn't provide. We told you at the Zoom webinar, the guy actually has to justify his decision versus just spending the money, it being a closed-door negotiation between two clubs and the agent, right? Now the fans are involved, the manager has to give a higher level of the manager and the club has to give a higher level of justification. They're likely to be community leaders. Like I'm likely to defer to my friend who knows more about Manchester United in order to form my opinion on an issue. All of this means that hosting government provides the missing link that OG doesn't give you, which is that there will be a proliferation of information and increased discussions on social media about whether a particular transfer or the buying or selling of that is actually good or bad. The comparative in this debate, we must be comparative, is people at the top deciding whether the fuck they want to do, like paying shit tons of money for players who are shit, and then people going on social media and making memes about it. The third thing, look, polarization is also symmetric. They say, but then the fans are gonna argue. Look, fans already argue, right? Like in sales I don't know why this is a tipping point. Like people already say this player is shit, some people say it's good. I don't see what's the problem. Saying increased barrier of entry is also kind of crazy. Like if you don't care about the club, like you can buy the season pass, you can don't buy the season pass, you can still be a casual enjoyer on the outside of the house. There's no obligation for you to vote. The fact that we have a right to vote in Malaysia does not mean I cannot enjoy the fruits and the product of democracy. Given the culture of sports we talked about, we think people are still able to enjoy the sports. I don't see why it's a problem. The next thing they say is, but the body of people are better, people are volatile. I want you to note two things. First, there's an argument against people deciding in general. Like, the management and all will still be there. These policies are still going to come from the club. Like people are just going to have the say on it. It's not like we're putting the people into power and decided whatever fuck I'm just going to buy. Every club is going to suddenly want to buy Messi. No, obviously the club is still going to propose it and then it passed the additional security check. So this mitigates a lot of the old harms about people being short-termists and stuff like that because there's still the apparatus, right? There are still the agents discussing. There's still the club checking with their finances to make sure if they can afford this particular transfer. So people only vote. But secondly, and this is crucial, this is an argument against democracy in general. If the argument is like voting equals bad, again, that's not what CG says. CG says if it's good, it'll pass. If it's bad, it won't pass. So all of these harms of like really bad decisions on our side probably still mitigated in some way. The next thing about the volatility of people, as we said, is that it tends to even out. And the comparative is important here, right? People across the globe who watch Manchester United on the screen are now able to have a say in the discussion. And this is something that doesn't happen on the other side, right? At the point in which there are increased discussions in multiple countries about the value of a particular player, we think the market value of what we should pay for a player is going to be closer to what the market dictates. Because the market is made out of fans and people who want to watch the sport, we think we are a better reflection. If football directors were so good, we wouldn't see clubs going bankrupt. We wouldn't see clubs overpaying salaries and paying shit tons of money just for people to scream, every time he fucks up the defending, No, thank you. I will now weigh this against CG's contribution and mechanism which was missing from OG. Three things. Firstly, empirically, these clubs are losing money. Year after year, they are losing hundreds of millions of dollars. And the reason is, the reason why this is comparative is because these business owners or billionaires can take this, right? They can afford these losses, which is why we told you increased revenue from fans is important. And this way we fill in and extend it from OG. It's not only about selling tickets to the show, it's also about match day revenue, right? People buying overpriced popcorn and all sorts of shit at the stadium when they go there. It's also about people bringing their family because, hey, look, I voted to bring that player in. At the point in which there's increased engagement, people are more likely to buy the player jersey. People are more likely to buy the home kit when they feel like they have had a say in the design, in the color, in paying, how much for this. I'll take a PICO if anything.
For your case and example, if they reject this proposal, then this club fuck it up, then it backfires a lot more on your side.
Yeah, then it's fine. Like, that's how democracy works. Like, we don't make best decisions all the time. Our case was independent outcome that people should have the club should have a reciprocal obligation to the fans because the fans are the money to which the sports, whatever. We explained this in member. Okay, it's also about sponsorship. At the point where there's increased fan engagement, now they know that more social media discussions and more people turning up at the stadiums because they have high incentive. It's also the point in which people are more likely to sponsor. We gave you examples of Yonex, Milo, Samsung, whatever, right? All these like brands on the football club jerseys, they're too small, I never see them. Lastly, and this is the missing thing which OG doesn't say, right? At the point where you have a more vested interest because I've discussed the purchasing of this player, I'm more likely to bring my family, I'm more likely to tell my friends, and we're going to likely go together and support. How does this weigh against the entire debate? At the point in which Manchester and Liverpool are like shit countries, football provides an escape from their daily lives, and the point in which people across the globe now have a say and feel more vested in how the club works. Very happy to propose on CG. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Doctor, for the speech. Let's have corporate.
I think the biggest gulf contention is all hinged on the fact that these shareholders are all passionless and are all profit-driven robots that don't give a shit about sports, right? Like government comes up with these examples of how all major shareholders are usually billionaires who are so disconnected from sports in itself, so they don't really care about decisions or how the club performs in itself because what they care about is just profit and money, right? I think Aiman already told you how this sports is not the most profit driving thing or it's not the most profit financially returning thing to invest in, right? If you're so rich and you have so much money to invest in, there's no reason why you just invest all that into sports and whatnot. Because we say you could invest that in somewhere else. If you invest in sports, I think chances are it's very highly likely that you're somewhat a fan of sports and somewhat interested in that to have you to be able to want to invest in that in the first place. I think it's that definitely genuinely untrue that when because people usually try to already choose to invest in teams that they are interested in, and there are usually already teams that are doing well, which is why it's good financially to just invest in these good financial decisions to just invest in them in the first place, right? And why is fashion then not the most important, but it's important with discuss is because it disproves the premise that their entire government is running on, right? Which is that they will readily jump ship and they don't care about these people or whatnot. Because they will not readily jump ship when there's other investment opportunities and the sports club won't die and whatsoever. This shows that we already are able to somewhat co-opt the benefit they prove, which is fan interest, because chances are these board of directors also have to are also part of the fans and they also have to cater to the fans in the end of the day. And even if we don't buy this, I think Aiman already explains to you why both sides ultimately have to take into account fan interest because that's what is profit generating, right? Even if you don't the difference between both sides is just one takes every decision fans make, one don't take fans' decision completely into account where they just analyze data and predict what fans want and whatnot. Right? Sure.
Newcastle United is owned by a public investment fund. Can you tell me why they know more about football than someone who buys a season pass?
I think even if they don't know more, I think they have to cater to fans even in the end anyways because that's what's profit generating, right? If you
do something that fans don't want, you're not going to get viewership. And you don't have to do that by asking your fans, oh, what do you want? Tell me now, vote for this thing now, so I can make this decision. You can make this decision on your own, analyzing data. You don't have to get their consent for that. Let's talk about OG then. The most biggest contribution coming from OG is one, favoritism of players. I think it's already very clear how this is something that's symmetrical because this exists on both sides anyways, right? Fan favorites have always been a thing. They try to mitigate this by saying that, oh, because we have a bigger sample size of fans, you already balance it out. But I don't think this is true, right? Because fan favorites will still exist in the end, even if you try to balance it out. Some people are generally just favorited by the public in of itself. Who are these fan favorites then? They're not always people who perform exceptionally well, right? They're also people who just caught the eyes of the audiences. Why can these people be that? They can be goofy or whatnot, they can do some weird shit, and then people just want to see them again on the big screen, which is why they want to vote them in again. Is this a good financial decision for the team? No, obviously not. To fully cater to the fans and give them everything they want means that the sports club will be fucked in the end, right? Because these fans have nothing, like a lot less to lose than the majority shareholders, because the majority shareholders are the one pouring money into this sports club, right? These fans just have to say, oh, I want to see this person on screen, and then you're like, oh, okay, then you pour your money, like letting this person do their own stuff in the end, which doesn't make sense. And even if favoritism is worse on our side, I think it's fine, because it's still the board of directors making decisions, right? Since we all agree that board of directors are usually profit driven and then they are likely to make the best financial decisions for the team anyways, for the club anyways, right? And I think this child molester example is literally just a one-off instance, or like even if it's like multiple instances, it's still a little like Gulf side is generally still picky, like only picks like times where like sports clubs fuck up and pretend like this is the entire truth, right? I think generally board of directors try to like not do these things because it affects their like public view of them, public optics of them, which is why like they are likely to not do these things in the first place. And I think it's also damn stupid as an example because I think it turns the fans away in the end, right? Which doesn't gain them profit. Why not? So I don't understand why this is something that should be discussed or why not. But also secondly, they talked about how there is a right to be part of like the decision making process. And CG also somewhat says the same thing. I think this makes zero sense, right? Because why is this right something that's existing? They never really explain to us. This is like buying like merchandise of your like K-pop idols or whatnot, and then like wanting to be part of their songwriting process. It just doesn't make sense. Just because you buy their stuff doesn't mean you have a right to be involved in their stuff. If you really want to be involved, like Aiman said, be part of the shareholders. Don't be a fan. You're called a fan for a reason, right? You're not investing a big sum of money the same way shareholders are. Which is why we say you don't have the right to actually just like be part of the decision making process, especially if your decision could fuck up the process and whatnot. Sure, you should reward them for their unwavering support, but I don't think it's in this form. Let's talk about CG then. I think the biggest let's talk about what Whip said first. Whip told us why fans have to justify their decisions to the board of directors when they make a decision. I don't see how this is something that is true, right? Because if this is true, how much time do you need to ask everyone to justify their decision for what something like that? I think likely the case that is likely to happen is the board of directors just ask everyone to vote on something and just go with it, right? You don't really have to justify your decision. And even if you have to justify, what give back do you have? Like, what do you give back to the people if they justify and you don't think it's a justified like person to choose, and just give them the illusion of like being able to choose, but not actually giving them what they want, right? We say that Gulf has to bite the bullet and defend that it's bad for defend the bad decisions of the fans and how like they just will take it because it's what the fans want. I think then because contribution from CG is just revenue generation and overall building, right? I think Aiman really sufficiently explains to you why this is something that's symmetrical on both sides or non-exclusive to their side, right? Because at the end of the day, you still have to cater to fans because they bring you the most profit. I don't think I really have to like explain on that. Difference is if you cater to fans fully, you don't have agency. Plus, you also lose out on your authority as shareholders, and you don't have agency as a shareholder, and your fans might make bad decisions. Why do we then rank over O? I think we give you sufficient analysis on why like shareholders and directors have the character to make better decisions because they're profit driven, because they want to make the sports club better, because they had more incentive to have the sports club last. Understand that fans at the end of the day are still watching sports for entertainment, they're not watching it for whatnot. Even the sports club die in the end, because of the decisions they make, they are stupid. They won't give a fuck lah because it's their decision, and they're like, oh, whatever lah, it's not my money anyways, right? Because I just bought a season pass, I didn't invest like $5 trillion into the club. For all those reasons, proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you all for the debate. Yes.